Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Mystery Science Theater 3000, episode 604, Zombie Nightmare. First off, happy Thanksgiving or happy Turkey Day. The main reason I'm reviewing this one, and this is coming out on Thanksgiving, I guess is two reasons. One, this episode premiered for the most part on Thanksgiving on a Turkey Day marathon. It was kind of the end big premiere episode, although two episodes premiered during that marathon. First one was Kitten with a Whip, but that premiered the night before on Thanksgiving's Eve, and this premiered as the last episode in the Thanksgiving Marathon, a Thanksgiving Marathon hosted by Adam West, who is also the sort of star, or the headline star, I guess, the biggest star at least, in Zombie Nightmare, and he was cool enough to actually host the entire marathon, a 28-hour marathon, although he wasn't like awake for 28 hours. He clearly just shot a bunch of interstitials, but he did. This was probably the highest budgeted Turkey Day marathon, with Adam West, Mimi Van Doren, Robert Vaughn, and Beverly Garland all coming in to do various host segments. But I'm not just here to talk about the Turkey Day Marathon. I also did this because Adam West died this year, and this was sad, and it's Turkey Day, and I felt like for Thanksgiving of 2017, it felt like the perfect Mystery Science Theater one to review, and this is the Mystery Science Theater holiday, Turkey Day. When the show premiered, it had various illustrious marathons on Comedy Central, one on Sci-Fi Channel, which wasn't that great, and then the streaming ones that have happened through Shout Factory thus far, and one that's happening today. This episode, I think it's a decent episode, but I think it probably falls into an episode that probably, in terms of riffs and things, doesn't age as well, which is something I really haven't experienced with this show, believe it or not. Even though we're talking about a show where people sit there and make fun of movies, and the show is from the 90s, you'd think like there's maybe a chance that some of these wouldn't age as well, but I really haven't encountered any that were probably as glaring as this, particularly their dislike of all the metal music throughout it. This movie, although it has zombies in it and so forth, does have a lot of metal bands, and in particular Motorhead, Girls' School, Thor, Virginia Steel, Death Mask, The Things, Nighthawk. None of them are really that big, and I don't think they're necessarily the greatest songs ever or anything like that, but I kind of didn't like their view on the music. I felt a little outdated. I think the difference between, like, let's say Jonah, if Jonah was doing this episode, you'd have a different sense to it. It also had a Pantera group that was not the heavy metal band from Texas. It's a different band called Pantera also, and that kind of held it back a little for me, because they were also jokes that weren't necessarily like really that funny. So that was another thing, but there are a lot of interesting things about it that made this very watchable. It had the film debut of Tia Carrere, who was my 90s crush from Wayne's World. It also, believe it or not, had the film debut of Sean Levy, who is probably most known for directing things like Night of the Museum and stuff like that, but probably also more known for producing and helping get Stranger Things made. So it's interesting that he was actually a star of a 80s horror movie. And Zombie Nightmare is a little interesting because it's a zombie movie in which the zombies are done by voodoo and not by, you know, George Romero-esque kind of zombie things that we're used to now. I think it's probably pretty late in the game to still be doing the voodoo thing. I don't really know of any films after this. This was released at least in 1986. It was shot in Montreal, very much feels like that. Not the greatest parts of Montreal either. It's suburban Montreal, so I guess how great was it going to be? But there seems to be debate over whether it actually had this limited theatrical release in the United States, but it seemed to have been played mainly on home video. It's a pretty bad movie. Mary Jo Pehl describes in the Amazing Colossal Episode Guide that the cast of Mystery Science Theater really hated. It's not a great movie, but I don't think it's that bad, but maybe when you have to watch it 3 or 4 times, which they often had to do, it lends to more hate. This was a New World Pictures film, which seems to be a well that Mystery Science Theater constantly goes back to, and they do sort of get into Adam West at a certain part, although he doesn't show up until like past 45 minutes into the film, so it's not like they could really do that much with him, but they actually do apologize and write letters to him, and he seems to have been a good sport about it, which is kind of cool. He filmed all these interstitials, I think was pretty cool of him. I've heard he kind of like took all the stuff of people making fun of him with a grain of salt, which seems to be the case considering this. Obviously this is during the era where they weren't doing invention exchanges, but it's nice that they had the zombie thing at the beginning with the case going to Mike, which honestly felt a little like an invention exchange, even though this is early in the 6th season where that was clearly not not going on anymore, it seems to fit into that slot very well, and especially since I'm bumping around arrows, it kind of fits in a little more naturally. But I like the zombie thing and how they wanted to give Jimmy Carter a hug, and the thing with Cokie Roberts, voiced by Mary Jo Pehl. I think this is a good episode. I don't think it's amazing. There are certain parts I was laughing really hard. There are other parts I was like, okay, stop making fun of how they're metalheads and how the music's really loud and stuff. But then they made like a Fear joke, like a joke about the band Fear. So it's like, if you knew about the band Fear in 1994, how come you're making all these other jokes? That seemed a little weird to me. It seemed like this episode was one that Comedy Central very much believed in. They had a thing called the Fresh Cheese Tour, where they went around to college campuses and played exclusive early showings of episodes of Comedy Central shows, and this was the Mystery Science Theater one. So if you're at a college campus like that summer, that fall, you probably could have seen this earlier on the Fresh Cheese Tour. Actually, this is the first time I'm hearing about it after seeing this and doing some research about this episode of Mystery Science Theater, which is interesting. And then they played it as the kind of premiere post-Thanksgiving episode. I think if my belly was full of turkey and I was having a few beers and I kicked back and watched Zombie Nightmare, I would have a good time with it, I think. Especially when you're seeing Adam West, who, by the way, I think Adam West does a much better performance in the host segments for this Turkey Day than this episode, this movie they're making fun of, which is terrible, and he's terrible in it, and Tia, like, no one's good in this movie. It's so horrible. The lighting's bad. I mean, I know the lighting's not great here, but at least, you know, this is a dumb YouTube channel, but like they made a movie. I think they spent $100,000 on it. I mean, this I've spent nothing, I guess. But it seemed like Adam West got into the Turkey Day thing, which, by the way, I will have a link to the one that most Mystery Science Theater sites seem to link to, this Adam West video where it has all of everything he shot for it, about 17 minutes worth, and it's really fun, and it has all the celebrity guests and everything like that. It seems to be like the height of Comedy Central really believing in the show, which seemed to fall apart like the next Turkey Day, but whatever. This was like one of the longer ones, and then the next one was the shortest one they had on Comedy Central. But that had host segments directed by Best Brains, I guess. The other ones didn't, but whatever. Although Best Brains turned down directing these. Also interesting, I noticed that Trace directed all the host segments in this. I never noticed who directed the host segments. I'm gonna have to pay more attention to that. But this is a great like Thanksgiving episode. It's cool that Adam West was down for this. I kind of like the whole story of Adam West and Mystery Science Theater, and this episode's a fun one. I'm not gonna say it's a great one. I think certainly them being anti sort of metal got a little annoying, but I still really like this episode. I still have a lot of fun with this episode. I still think it's a decent one. There's certain parts I was laughing a lot. I think there's certain times when you're watching Mystery Science Theater episode where you're having fun, but you're not laughing out loud, and there's certain parts where I was like having a hard time, like, well, I would be laughing at one joke and another joke would have another joke, and there are certain points where, or like when they were making fun of the the detective who looked like he was like a 16-year-old and being a detective, that I thought was like hilarious. So all the Adam West stuff, like how he wanted to kill Tim Burton, was particularly I thought pretty funny, probably because that was a bigger deal at the time, that Adam West hates Tim Burton thing, because he did try to go out for the Tim Burton's Batman movie and they wouldn't let him be in it, and apparently he wasn't thrilled at that portrayal of Batman. This is a funny one. It's a great Thanksgiving episode, and I think it was a great way to cap off one of the better Mystery Science Theater Turkey Day marathons, and it's cool we can pretty much experience all of that. I don't think it's maybe one of the greatest episodes. It's kind of more like if you like Adam West, you like Mystery Science Theater, you should probably just get this done with and watch it. It's not one I would show people who aren't as into the show, but if you are into the show and, you know, want to watch something with a belly full of turkey, I think Zombie Nightmare would be a pretty good combination. Just lay on the couch and have a belly full of turkey and have a few beers and have a good time while you're laughing at Mike and the bots. So if you have seen Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode 604 Zombie Nightmare and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Happy Thanksgiving and thank you for watching.